is News 8 at 10.
Fotis Dulos was declared dead tonight at 5:32.
More than 48 hours after a suicide attempt at his Farmington home, murder suspect Fotis Dulos is dead. Tonight it looks like Dulos left a note declaring his innocence. He wrote, "His attorneys can prove it."
After shocking news of Fotis Dulos' death, his defense attorney saying his focus is now shifting to vindicating his client's death.
Plus, what's next for his vast estate?
Now that Fotis Dulos has passed, what happens to his house up in Farmington? What happens to his estate? We'll talk to the people who are getting ready to take over.
At the center of the tragedy, Jennifer Dulos, her family releasing a new statement. Tonight, the big question remains, where is Jennifer?
The estranged husband of Jennifer Dulos dead tonight, 2 days after his apparent suicide attempt.
Fotis Dulos was rushed to Jacoby Medical Center in the Bronx after he was found unresponsive in his car at his Farmington home. That was on Tuesday. His attorney now says Dulos left a note maintaining his innocence in the disappearance of his wife, Jennifer. We're taking a look at what's next with the charges against Dulos, as well as the timeline of this, starting when Jennifer Dulos disappeared 8 months ago. We're also taking a look back at the life of the mother of 5. We have team coverage for you tonight. Bob Wilson is in Farmington, where Dulos' home is now in foreclosure. But we begin with Shayna Ferreira, who's live in the Bronx, where we learned just hours ago about Dulos' death. Shayna.
Yeah, that's right. Norm Pattis announcing his client, Fotis Dulos, died in this New York City hospital just after 5:30 with his family by his side, adding that it's been a horrific day, and now the defense's focus is shifting to clearing Fotis Dulos' name for good.
And we're not bitter, and we're not accusing anybody of having driven him to his death, but we wonder why, in the court of public opinion, the presumption of innocence was so quickly satisfied.
Norm Pattis, defense attorney for Fotis Dulos, announcing his client's death on Thursday outside of the Jacoby Medical Center 2 days after Dulos' shocking suicide attempt at his home in Farmington. Dulos' family flying in from Greece to be by his side as doctors work to save him.
So it's been a truly horrific day for the family, filled with difficult decisions, medical tests, and meeting the requirements to determine death.
Dulos was found unresponsive Tuesday from carbon monoxide poisoning. He was flown to the Bronx for treatment in a hyperbaric chamber, but the damage was already done. Now the focus for attorney Norm Pattis shifts towards vindicating his client's name and the charges he faced related to the death and disappearance of his estranged wife, Jennifer Dulos.
We have filed an unusual motion in the Connecticut courts asking to substitute an estate for Fotis Dulos for him as a defendant, to force the state to show its hand in a trial filled with evidence we think that amounts to no more than innuendo and unsupported suspicion. And as to those who contend that Mr. Dulos' death reflects a consciousness of guilt, we say no. We say it was more a conscience overborne with the weight of a world that was too busy to listen and that wanted a story more than it wanted the truth.
Now, Fotis Dulos' body is going to be heading over to the Manhattan Medical Examiner's office for a full autopsy to determine the official cause of death. As for his family that flew in from Greece last night, they have decided to donate his organs so that Fotis Dulos may live on in some way. We're live tonight in the Bronx. Shayna Ferreira, News 8.
Our team coverage continues in Farmington, where the home of Fotis Dulos is now empty. News 8's Bob Wilson is live with what may have been in the note Dulos' attorney says he left behind. Bob.
Yeah, it's dark, the house. A single light can be seen coming from the garage. Right now, the memorial burns bright for Jennifer. However, what happens to the estate now? We talked with Green Tea Realty broker there who's going to be taking over if this goes through. He's saying the house will go up on the market, but it's got a lot of hurdles to clear before then. And what happens and what does it do if a suicide note comes forward? Over the past 24 hours, police have served a search warrant for the home and car and found a note inside the car where Fotis Dulos attempted suicide. That, according to defense attorney Norm Pattis, he filed a motion in Stamford Superior Court to preserve evidence, which included the note, quote, a note in which he declared his innocence of the infamous and heinous crimes that the state has accused him of and claimed his lawyers have the evidence to prove it, close quote. Meanwhile, the Dulos home empty, a contrast to the candles burning bright against the darkness at 4 Jefferson Crossing. So what will happen to the house now that Dulos is dead?
It does bring some amount of closure for everybody involved. I would expect once the judge signs off on the receivership order, we securitize the house. We hopefully hear from the family and what they want to do with his possessions.
The $5 million home is going into foreclosure, but will it sell when it goes back on the market? Or will it be more of a tourist attraction?
You have a lot of, people want to see the house. I mean, you have over 10,000 square feet. It's a nicely built house in a nice neighborhood, and, people want to see it for different reasons.
Jufria says the building cost was about $5 million, but will it sell with its history and the media attention?
In the beginning, I think the house would be somewhat stigmatized, but someone's going to get a really good deal on that house.
When they first listed it, it was worth $5 million. What is it worth now? They don't know. It still has to go through foreclosure, through the estate, and then onto the market. And once it goes through all that, time may have passed. And he says time heals all wounds. We'll have to see what it lists at when it goes through all the steps. I'm Bob Wilson reporting live in Farmington, News 8.
All right, Bob, thank you. This all began on a beautiful spring day more than 8 months ago when Jennifer Farber Dulos disappeared.
It was May 24th, 2019, a Friday. 50-year-old Jennifer Dulos, a mother of 5, was in the middle of a nasty divorce. She dropped her kids off at school in New Canaan and hasn't been seen since. She missed some appointments that day. Friends got worried and called police. They found her SUV in nearby Mawhinney Park and blood in her garage. The nanny says she found Jennifer's cup of tea and discovered 10 rolls of paper towels missing. An investigation began. Police find surveillance video they say is Fotis Dulos and his girlfriend Michelle Troconis throwing bags in a dumpster in Hartford. In them, police say a blood-stained shirt Jennifer was wearing that day, her bloody bra, along with mops and sponges and zip ties, all spattered with Jennifer's blood. Dulos and his girlfriend, Michelle Troconis, were arrested and charged with evidence tampering and obstruction of justice, both put under house arrest.
Fotis, do you believe police have the evidence to convict you on the murder?
Investigators spent 3 weeks combing through garbage at a trash plant in Hartford, hoping to find her body. They came up empty.
I just want to tell my children that they're constantly on my mind and that I love them and I miss them very much.
After searching for Jennifer for months but finding nothing, police finally filed a murder charge against Dulos, his girlfriend Michelle Troconis, and his lawyer Kent Mawhinney charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
Fotis Dulos arriving in his state police transport. There he is, handcuffed in the passenger seat. You can see him right now.
Fotis Dulos made his $6 million bond, but the financial deal that made it happen began to crumble. January 28th, the date of a bond hearing where it looked like Dulos would wind up back behind bars, he was late for court. Police rushed to his Farmington home. They saw him in the car, in the garage, with the motor running. Dulos was rushed to Yukon Hospital, then airlifted to a hospital in the Bronx for treatment in a hyperbaric chamber. 2 days later, it was over.
Fotis Dulos was declared dead tonight at 5:32.
The ex-girlfriend and former attorney of Fotis Dulos also facing charges. Still in that case, both could still face trial. Legal experts have told us now that Dulos is dead, the state is expected to drop the prosecution against him. But they, in all likelihood, will proceed with the charges against Michelle Troconis and Kent Mawhinney.
Well, I've believed and still believe the reason the other two were charged was to exert some pressure on them to cooperate against Fotis Dulos, whom the state, I think, believes is the principal bad actor. The state is going to need to reevaluate how they're going to proceed against Troconis and Mawhinney as well.
As we mentioned, Troconis and Mawhinney are charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Troconis also faces evidence tampering and hindering prosecution charges.
At the center of all this, of course, is Jennifer Farber Dulos, who disappeared in May and is presumed dead. Her body was not found. Her family spokesperson tonight, Carrie Luft, released a statement saying, quote, "This is a horrific tragedy all around. No one could ever imagine what would happen to this mother of 5. Long before the life of Jennifer Farber Dulos took such a tragic turn, she was described as bright and funny and smart. She graduated from Brown University with honors and got a master's degree from New York University. She grew up in New York City and has just one sister. She married Fotis Dulos in Manhattan in 2004. She was his second wife. The couple moved to Farmington, where they had 5 children, including 2 sets of twins. As a stay-at-home mom, she wrote a blog called 5 Makes 7. Following Jennifer Dulos' disappearance, friends and family rallied around her children and stayed vigilant about trying to find her. Carrie Luft became the Farber family's spokesperson.
I and her friends and her family and everyone who's ever met Jennifer knows that she would never, ever disappear voluntarily. She is very gracious and gentle and thoughtful, and she cares deeply for her children.
Days turned into weeks, and Jennifer Dulos remained missing. There were vigils in her honor in the town she was now calling home with her children. Prayers were raised at a church in New Canaan.
When one of our own goes missing, it affects the entire community.
Connecticut businesses tried to help too by putting up flyers trying to find her. Sky Mercedes, the co-owner of Forever Sweet Bakery, said he just had to do something because the story was so deeply upsetting. He teamed up with pizzerias in his town and in New Canaan, putting her photo on pizza boxes.
We have to come together as one to try to help resolve this, because there's 5 children involved.
The children are and have been living with their maternal grandmother, Gloria Farber, in New York City. They've been kept out of sight throughout this unimaginable ordeal. Now with their parents gone, candles continue to glow at the memorial for Jennifer Dulos, just steps away from what was Fotis Dulos' Farmington home. And we have been covering this story since last May. Everything related to this case's timeline and copies of all documents can be found by clicking the Dulos case on the News 8 app.
All right, let's talk about your weather tonight. It is another quiet January night in New Haven. It looks like it's going to stay that way for a while. Let's check it out. Here's Joe with your forecast. Joe.
Hi, Darren. Thanks, everybody. All right, temperatures this evening have dropped off a little bit. We have a high, thin cloud deck out there. You can see that little crescent moon through it. Temperatures are, yeah, again, fairly uniform with this cloud cover. 24 at Colebrook, 23 at Summers, 26 at Guilford, 31 Milford, Danielson at 27. No wind to speak of, and that's going to be the way we see it for this last day of January, as Friday doesn't have much wind and has a little better temperature than we had today. So they're the clouds that are out there right now, but again, it's a thin overcast. Temperatures today, well, they were in the 30s for only the 7th time this January for the shoreline. So with temperatures where they are right now in the 20s to 33 at New Haven, they may not drop off a whole lot more overnight tonight, but some of you, if the sky gets a little bit clearer, we'll go into the teens overnight tonight. And then, well, we're up low 40s, lots of clouds, intervals of sun. Overall, a pretty good end to January. February, well, we'll talk about it in the 8-day forecast coming up.
Joe, thank you. New tonight, murder charges have been filed now against a Colchester man who police say confessed to killing his whole family in Florida. Anthony Tott was charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder down in Florida. The bodies of his wife and 3 kids were found in their home in Celebration, Florida earlier this month. Tott also facing an animal cruelty charge for killing the family dog. He is pleading not guilty.
Investigators have now released their preliminary report of a deadly state trooper-involved shooting in West Haven, and it includes the official cause of death. The Middlesex State's attorney says 19-year-old Mubarak Suleiman died after being shot in the torso and extremities on January the 15th. He confirmed Suleiman was shot during an encounter with state troopers in West Haven, and West Haven police were also on scene. This comes on the same day the family of Suleiman met with the West Haven police chief demanding answers into the investigation.
We now know that there was 4 to 5 West Haven police officers that was involved. And the chief said that they have already sent their statement to the state attorney.
The state police will see which ones are actually involved in the incident, and that's where the number will stand.
Family still wants to talk to city officials, but say they are not returning their phone calls.
The latest tonight on the flu season, the number of deadly flu cases rises again in Connecticut. The state health department says 3 people died last week, bringing the total for this season now to 23. More than 1,000 people in the state have wound up in the hospital from the flu, 250 just last week.
Flu activity is considered widespread across Connecticut.
Plainfield police have now identified the victims of a deadly house fire. 83-year-old William Garapi and his grandson, 9-year-old Lucas Pearson, were killed when flames broke out in the home on Norwich Road Tuesday night. The cause of that fire remains under investigation. The latest on the governor's controversial toll proposal. Senate Democrats say it will not come up for a special session. Lawmakers were supposed to hold a vote on the governor's trucks-only toll plan on Monday or Tuesday, but any potential debate or vote will now have to come during the regular legislative session, which begins on Wednesday. A public hearing on the plan will still be held tomorrow afternoon at the Legislative Office Building in Hartford.
Governor Lamont has outlined his first proposals for the new legislative session. Chief Political Correspondent Mark Davis takes a look.
The governor chose a co-working space incubator for business startups in downtown Hartford to announce that his first proposal of the new year will be to completely turn around how the Department of Economic Development interacts with businesses to create jobs and economic growth.
Talking about incentives, throwing a lot less money up front, which has been the norm. Now you earn it as you go. As I said, if you invest in Connecticut, we invest in you.
We want to compete because of our health care, because of our workforce, our quality of life, our education. There's going to be a big focus on innovation in our cities in particular. That's how we want to compete.
The plan is a complete repudiation of the approach taken for the entire 8 years of the Malloy administration.
The old days, maybe it was, here's a grant, here's a bucket of money, come and deliver, and if it doesn't work, I claw it back.
Under this plan, the Economic Development Commissioner says businesses will have to create jobs here first, with the promise that any tax breaks or other incentives would come later.
I think that the commissioner has got the right attitude and the right idea, which is come here, produce, and then we'll give you the reward, which is the complete opposite of what Malloy's administration did.
The governor is expected to talk more about this change in his speech next week on opening day of the General Assembly session.
The governor says, and Republicans appear to agree, that this approach will help grow businesses and create jobs in Connecticut with much less risk to taxpayers. At the state capitol, Mark Davis, News 8.
Well, we're proud to announce that Joe Fury's taking up knitting. There's nothing else going on in the weather department, right?
Getting better.
We're making a sweater.
Actually, I'm making bathing suits right now.
It's a knit bathing suit. There's a look.
Really
you know what? That happened in the 70s.
Okay.
I'm looking at some new information here, and trying to push the storm in a little closer. But bottom line is it's not too much.
Okay.
Okay. And the idea to go into February here is to have the temperature continue above average there, and it's been so quiet. It's just amazing that we just don't have anything major to talk about. It's Jordan's Furniture Long Wharf Live View. We're quiet this evening. We've got a little bit of a cloud cover out there. We don't have any wind, and that actually made the difference today. Again, Hartford calm with 29 degrees, and we are looking at numbers across the nation that once again are not anything what they could be this time of year, as all the big Arctic cold is locked up around the poles. And the one thing to note about that is that cold air is really building up there, and chances are some point in time it's going to let loose, and it probably will do that at a time we don't want it to, like sometime in later February or March. But for now, if you're marching down to Florida, doing fine down there, there will be a front going through there, so as we get to Super Bowl time, they're going to be dropping back into the 60s during the game, so it's going to be actually very comfortable. Maybe a little too cool for the folks down there. It's going to be, for us, numbers on the thermometer tomorrow better than today. We got 34 at Hartford and 35 at New Haven. These numbers just about where they should be for this time of year, which has been rare in this January because we're about 7 degrees above average for January 2020. And it was only, again, the 7th time this month that we got temperatures to stay in the 30s. At the shoreline, haven't had one day in the 20s along the shore. How about that? All right, we're in the 20s right now, 23 Torrington to 33 at New Haven. And the idea, the wind is calm. The cloud cover is not all that thick. So the temperature could drop off more overnight tonight, and there can be some teens going into early tomorrow. So we're talking about 20s and teens to start the day. 40s, intervals of clouds and sun. No wind to speak of, so tomorrow is going to be pretty good. Last day of January, which has just been an unbelievable month. And then the clouds are around going into Saturday night and early Sunday. The low is offshore. We may just be enough on the far western edge of it to get a little bit of mixed precipitation and snow in here, especially eastern areas early on Sunday morning. That wouldn't amount to too much. And then Saturday, what did I say? Yeah, going into early on Saturday, and then Saturday is going to be fine, and Sunday is going to be fine as well. So yeah, the idea is that other than a little bit of snow shower activity that might show up at some point Saturday, and again on Sunday, we're doing fine. A little bit breezy on Sunday with that temperature again in that 40-degree range. Looking early next week. In the 8-day forecast, that's not February. The 50s are showing up next week. So other than a few snow showers around at some point going into scattered about Saturday and Sunday, it's mainly dry over the weekend with the 40s and then the 50s. And my goodness, look at Wednesday next week. Getting up near 60 down there.
Wow. All right. Joe, thanks. How would you like to still have wine and chocolate and lose weight? Still ahead on News 8 at 10, the latest diet trend that says you can. We'll show you how it works.
New information about the coronavirus, a warning from the feds about travel to China.